Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tour Operator Growth Podcast. And I just want to give a quick shout out. Thank you for everybody that is listening to this podcast. We've been putting out weekly episodes for a few months now, and we've grown, and it's been really awesome to see. So if you're getting value from this podcast, let us know. It helps us more than you think. Today is a really fun episode. We are bringing on somebody from inside Resmark. She works directly with tour operators every single day. Katja is one of our amazing client success managers. She's been with us for nearly 2 years now, and before that, she worked in the travel industry with Sonoma County Tourism, her local DMO. Since joining Resmark, she's become a huge asset. Our clients love working with her because she really is in the trenches with them, helping them with their websites, their SEO, their ongoing optimizations, and overall business growth. So if you ever become a Resmark client, there is a chance Katja might be your client success manager. And if she is, promise you are in good hands. All right. So now we've been talking about the planning stage over the last several episodes. Today, we are diving even deeper into that. Remember, this is the moment where somebody has found you, but now they're deciding who to actually go with. Maybe they're comparing you with another tour operator. So we're going to break this down from both sides. Katja as a traveler and also from her experience working with tour operators every single day. So Katja, let's start somewhere really simple. What does your day-to-day look like at Resmark, and why do you enjoy working with tour operators?
Yeah, I'm the, as you said, the client success manager here at Resmark Web. And so I work directly with our tour and activity providers to really just help them, grow their business through website, digital marketing, and everything. So day to day, that means I'm the main point of contact. So I'm working closely with them to understand their goals, whether that's like direct bookings, improving website performance, increasing visibility through SEO, and then really just coordinating with our internal team to make all of that happen. So I'm collaborating a lot with our designers, developers, SEO specialists, making sure everything we're doing is really aligned with their goals. So I spend a lot of time reviewing performance, looking for opportunities and helping clients kind of understand what's working, educating and what's not, and what we can improve. So I guess kind of at the end of my day, my role is really about kind of like bridging the gap between like the client's vision and strategy and then kind of the execution needed to get them there.
Yeah, like you said, you work with kind of all aspects of our team of our company, all except for the development team, maybe not quite as much on the software side. But you're working with designers, SEO very closely, and working with the tour operators themselves very closely all the time, right? So, in your experience, where do you see that most users, most people visiting the websites are getting stuck in that planning phase before they actually book?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like this is something that, we see all the time. People don't actually get stuck on necessarily like choosing a tour. They get stuck maybe a little earlier when they're just trying to figure out what their options are, kind of, and who to trust. There's like a lot of I mean, to me, I have 20 tabs open, a lot of comparing and honestly, like a lot of like overwhelm, like if a website isn't clear or it's hard to understand or really what like makes that experience different. People just tend to like kind of move on rather than like digging deeper. Um, and I think that like just kind of a lot of that comes from like clarity and confidence. So like people are asking themselves like, is this the right experience for me? Like, can I trust this company? Are those, so like if those questions aren't answered like really quickly, like I feel like people don't move forward.
Yeah, there's a book that I've read multiple times called Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug or Krug. I brought it up on webinar, maybe in the podcast as well. But it's all about user experience and it talks about cognitive dissonance and how as you go throughout anything in life, but specifically websites, every single thing that causes dissonance just is an adding stress. And the more of those, the less likely someone is to book or the more likely they are to go to a different website, right? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that attribute to that. Is there anything specifically that you see with clients who are growing, who are seeing success, is there anything that they're doing that you think is attributing to that success that maybe other companies aren't really doing
That's a really
or
good
aren't
question.
doing a good job at maybe?
Yeah. Well, and this is actually something I can kind of relate to too. Like, and not just necessarily tour operators, but like, if people who are growing are really clear on who they are, and what they're for, like what they're not trying to be everything to everyone. They understand their brand, like what makes them special, what makes their experience special, and they really kind of like lean into that. And that makes it, really, I think, like easier for that right customer to say yes, because it's like it just feels like a good fit, when like and I guess on the other side, like, the people or operators who struggle, like they're just trying to be, or they're just more generic, their messaging is like trying to appeal to everyone, but in doing that, it doesn't really kind of resonate with anyone, so it's kind of harder for customers to like quickly see, like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for, so I think it's like, maybe less about having more options and just making, being clear, true to yourself, about like what you do and what you do well. And so that's more like obvious for the right customer or person.
Yeah, I think when you think of, like, successful companies, a lot of them started small, right? Amazon.
Yeah.
It sold books. It didn't sell everything initially, right? It got really good at selling books online, and then it started adding more to it because now they knew who they were and what they wanted to do and had a solid plan. So from what I'm hearing, the
Yeah.
branding aspect, that really, understanding of what you want the business to be is almost the most important thing that's going to lay the foundation to then creating a good website that's easy to go through because you're going to be able to speak in a way that your people will resonate with. You're going to be able to have information that's going to touch them at the right time because you understand exactly who you are as a company.
Exactly. On your guiding North Star.
We actually just did a podcast interview with somebody. And if you're listening, you probably listened to that episode. But she actually talked about how she makes her emails very personable, as if she is emailing between her and a friend or whatnot. So she knows her audience well enough to know that she could have that personal level of communication with them. And that's not everybody, right? Your audience might not resonate as much with that, but she knows her audience will resonate with that because when they go on a tour, they want that connection with their tour guide and the tour company. Whereas sometimes maybe a larger tour operation, that isn't the kind of experience that they are trying to give to their customers. So
It also
everybody's is
doesn't
different.
it
Mhm.
also doesn't come off out authentic, right? I talked about
Right.
SeaWorld to someone recently because I was maybe going to go to SeaWorld when I was in California. Like the emails they send me are not personal. And if they did send
Right.
me a personal feeling ones, they wouldn't feel authentic because I know they don't care about me. But a smaller operation that, is more intimate experience, like it does fit well. It's can be authentic, even if you're not actually being authentic. It might feel more authentic
Mhm.
than a lot of different types of opportunities out there.
It's more believable as well from a smaller operation.
Mhm.
Katja, let's take a step back from a traveler's perspective because you've been all over. You just recently went to Japan and you have a lot of good travel experience. What are
Mhm.
you personally looking for before you're deciding between different experiences or different tours? What do you gravitate towards?
Gosh, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, even like working in this industry, like, I book the tours the same way everybody else does. I'm starting with a lot of options. I'm on social media scrolling, I'm doing a bit of research and really just trying to narrow it down quickly, I guess. But yeah, I keep going back to that. Like I keep looking for something that feels like a great fit, not just like a good tour or whatever, but really like matches the kind of experience I want and who I am. So trying to find myself fitting into that, like so I'm paying attention to like how it's described, the tone, the photos, like how does it feel? Is it more adventurous, more relaxed, that kind of thing, Um, and I want to be able to get to that kind of quickly. Like if I have to work too hard to figure that out, to find myself, like picture myself in that experience, I probably won't. And then as far as trust goes, I think reviews are a big one. I think they're really important, not just the rating, because, of course, everybody has a bad day and there's going to be some, one stars out there, but actually reading a few and seeing if people describe the experience, in a way that feels consistent, I guess. Good, authentic photos help a lot too, not, overly polished, but actual real photos of people also sway me, honestly. Just I like to see real people doing things, I guess. But yeah, and then of course clarity, right? So when you go to a website, it's got to be easy to use and clean. And of course, I'm looking at a ton of websites every day, so maybe I'm a little more critical. But if I can't figure out what's expected right away, then I'm like, ah, this is too hard. It's got to be easy, and fun to look at. Um,
Absolutely, especially since most
yeah.
likely what you're gonna do is gonna be something fun.
Yes.
Like, you don't wanna have to make it so hard to go do that fun thing. You want it to be easy. So I want to ask a question and kind of split you in two and have the traveler part of you and then the client success manager part of you kind of answer this. So it'll be kind of two answers. But when you look at websites, client websites, tourism, tour booking websites, what's the biggest difference between the ones that convert and the ones that don't? So from the traveler side of this, in your mind, what's the one, maybe two most impactful things that help you actually book with that company? And then from the client success side, what are people doing that's really helping people convert?
Yeah, gosh, that's a good question. Maybe so. Okay, so from the traveler side, I feel like the ones that are just really clear right away. You land on the page and you know exactly what the experience is, who it's for, why it's worth it. There's no confusion. It's just they are super clear about who they are, and I can imagine myself there. Um, and then maybe kind of on the client success side, I think they do a really good job of reinforcing trust throughout, really strong reviews, great photos, just really clear details. Everything's real consistent and professional. So you're not really second guessing your decision, I guess. It's hard to separate. So it's hard to take that hat on or off. So they go both hand in hand. But yeah, I think, for me personally, it's got to be a good fit from my personality type of thing. I can just envision myself doing whatever it is. But then I get more technical. I'm like, oh, these photos are wonderful. And oh, look at that review. They did a really good job, this type of thing. You know?
This just popped in my head. I don't know if I've told
Yeah.
this story before, but I had a guy that knocked on my door. This was during election season, and he handed me a flyer saying, "Hey, vote for me." It was the guy that was running for office. And I looked down at the flyer, and without even thinking, I told him, "How can I vote for you when your picture's blurry?" And, I was dead serious about it, but, that's how I feel when I go to websites. If you have bad imagery, they're blurry, things just don't look right, how am I gonna trust that you're actually good at what you do? It's that same kind of mentality of building that trust through all the little things, not just the big things as well, but the little things matter.
They do. They all come together. Your website's like your front door. So when someone comes to your house, that's that first impression. It's
So,
gotta be clean and looking good. Yeah.
so let's say a tour operator has all of these things in place. They have the trust factors, they have incredible imagery, but we're still a lot of people who visit the website, they do not book a tour right away. So I know, Katja, you're working with a lot of clients with this specific thing is capturing emails and capturing those people who maybe aren't ready to book and maybe we're not running retargeting ads on Facebook or whatnot. Where do you tell tour operators to start And I know we've worked on this together, and it's always fun to figure out ways, we could capture emails. What advice would you give a tour operator? Let's say they're your client you're working with. We want to capture more emails. Where should they start?
Yeah, it definitely does seem overwhelming at first, but I think the key is just kind of starting, right? And you can always get better, but like, and you don't necessarily need something super complex, right? So like maybe the easiest place is to start by adding like a clear kind of relevant email capture on your website, like especially like on your high traffic pages, your home pages, your tour pages, that sort of thing. But I think the main key or the most important thing is can't just be join our newsletter. That's not usually compelling enough. You got to think about like what would be actually useful for someone, useful enough in that planning phase, in that phase where they're like, maybe it's a short guide, local tips, even just helping them choose like the right tour. It has to feel like this is worth giving my email for because that's, of course, people don't necessarily want to give away the keys. That's a lot, to give access to someone's inbox. So it definitely has to have enough value, So definitely just not like a newsletter. It's got to be something tangible that they can use, useful.
Yeah, I
What
totally
kind of
agree.
lead Because I know, like, you're working with a lot of clients on different types of, lead magnets that we're putting on their websites. Do you ever notice that a certain lead magnet works better than the others, whether that's a pop-up on the website or maybe it's a more interactive quiz? When you're meeting with clients, because you do on a monthly basis, do you ever find that some are more successful with the amount of emails that they're getting coming in?
That's a good question. I feel like the ones that really do provide the value are the ones that are doing well. And especially, like as a tour operator, your area and your business so well. So anytime you can give little nuggets of information to people, I think that's what they're really looking for. Because they can go buy a book about the destination or whatever, but they really want like a friend to show them around. So like if you can kind of package all of those little tidbits somehow, I think that's what really is successful.
Yeah, I also think most people, they don't enjoy shopping around. I
Yeah.
know
Yep.
I personally don't. Like, I open a ton of tabs, I look at a bunch of companies, but at the end of the day, if I, like, could just go to one website or AI and have it tell me, like, "Do this and I'll buy it for you," like, that's what I wanna do. I don't wanna have to think about it all. And
Yeah.
so these guides, these quizzes, they're really a way when done right. One, you have to provide value, I think, before the email request. If your website's not providing value, why do I care about your guide? Why do I care about your newsletter? If the quiz doesn't provide me any value as I'm taking the quiz and at the end of the quiz before I give you my email, like, why am I going to give you my email? Like, you haven't given me anything. You're just trying to capture my email. But if you're able to give me information that's going to make it so cool, I'm planning a tour, but now I also can like plan where I'm gonna eat in the area and plan other things to do. I don't have to go and search that now because you're kinda telling me. In my opinion, that helps, like, a ton with really building that trust, but also just making it easier for me throughout the process. So I don't have to keep searching for everything else. I can kind of base my trip now off of what you're telling me I should do, right? Um, so with that, like, tour operators. Oh, go ahead, Nikki.
I was just gonna say, Katja, when you're meeting with clients, is this something that you strategize with them whenever you're having those strategy meetings? Are you talking about? I know we don't, as a company, like create the lead magnet necessarily. We might give you some resources and whatnot. But when you're sitting with the client, are you kind of going through options and best practices? What does that look like?
Yeah. Like I think we are not just necessarily like creating those emails and so forth, but like definitely I think people kind of tend to, you know, be over promotional too quickly, like book now before that person's even really ready, or maybe they're too broad, and they don't speak enough to what that person is actually interested in. So maybe just kind of slowing things down, And just giving them enough at that stage, I think, is what we talk a lot about.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
that's
Greg,
that's
you can
one of
go
the
ahead.
hard things too is, like,
Yeah.
especially with websites, you need to have the information for everyone at every path that they're coming through, right? This might be my 7th time on your website, so having a clear book now on the homepage is, like, awesome because I can go straight to where I wanna go, but having it too much in your face while I'm just trying to learn about your company, like, every CTA, every call to action is a book now button. Like,
Mm.
it doesn't help me learn about your tour guides or your operation or this or that, and it's kind of off-putting as well 'cause, I'm not able to dive into the pages as easily as maybe a better layout would help me with. Um, so we kinda deviate a little bit from leads, but going back to that just real quickly, tour operators, they build their list, they're getting a bunch of emails, whatever. What are the most effective ways to take that list and turn them into bookings? I know we've been kind of talking about them a little bit, some of the
Mhm.
deliverables, but what could they be doing after they capture that email to really turn them into bookings? And what have you seen that is actually working?
That's a good question. Even before we capture those emails, it would be really awesome, and this is maybe something you have to set up ahead of time, but, being able to segment them a little bit too, like being able to, let's say, if they're on a certain page, what they're interested in, or if they've booked a tour, what tour that was, or if they have something on the form that you can segment them is really handy. So you can get a little bit more information about those people so that you're not really delivering the same thing to everyone, I think is really good. Um, but then, of course, there's the usual newsletters, keeping them engaged. Of course, those are important things, but um, just sending information about, up to date what you're doing, what you're doing throughout the year. That's a good question. Do you have any other ideas, Nikki?
Yeah, well, what you just said about updates about the company, I got an amazing email in my inbox with somebody. I'm not going to say who it is just yet because I got him on the podcast. And the email was so inspiring and touching. And I was like, wow, this was really well written. And it was basically the story of the company. And I think there's always a place and time for those sort of emails. And this was the right time. And I think that when you put that email inside, the right consumers or prospects inbox, it can make a difference and allow them to build that trust or decide or allow them to decide that you're the tour operator they're going to go with when they're ready to make that trip. Um, so I think that having different emails and different, situations are really important. You have your monthly newsletters, you have your maybe weekly value emails that you're sending, and you're just trying to provide valuable information because maybe you released a new blog post that has a packing list that you want to share with people or trip itinerary that you just released. And it's not constantly selling all the time, it is just providing value. And then when the time comes, they will be ready to book your tour. And you can drop subtle hints, to book when you're ready, book this tour. We are building out some emails from one of our clients. It's not one of Katja's clients, it's Heidi, our other coach. And we're building out monthly newsletters for him. But on top of that, we're building additional emails that really just opt people in to want to receive more information. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can do, but I think it's segmenting the list and sending it to the right place, the right time. And you can't really lose unless you have a really high unsubscribe rate. Just keep sending emails and keep doing what you're doing because you own that data. You can at the
I
end of
was
the day.
thinking that. Yeah, that's one thing that you really control. As much as Google and search engines and AI and everything is changing, like you control that. So
Mhm.
it's really important to keep it active.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
if you got one thing out of that portion, and from my opinion, it's segmenting. Because
Yeah.
if you're sending me emails about something I'm not interested in and never showed interest in, it's probably not gonna hit as well as if
Mhm.
you're sending me information about the trip that I was looking at or the thing that I signed up for, right? So, also knowing your brand, like we mentioned earlier, like what is it that you want people to understand about your business? How do you want them to feel about your business? I'm working on a website right now in Canmore in Banff National Park. I've been there personally already, and it's like it was top of my bucket list. So when I went, like it was one of the best places I've ever been. I want to go back every day. And so like working on the website, I'm thinking as a user, like what inspired me to even go here? And so newsletters and information coming from a company like that that's just like taking you to a place that is beyond beautiful, like that's an opportunity to really inspire people through your emails, right? Inspire
Yes.
them, set the stage for what they're gonna view without giving it away because there's no way that you can. Like, I've seen a million pictures of Moraine Lake, but when you walk over the rocks and actually see it in person, it's just like, "Wow, this is." So it's like knowing your brand because that's gonna be very different than one of our clients, Bunny Bus. We just launched their website recently, and they're very different, right? They're not gonna send some very inspirational, emails about whatever. It's literally a bus that's like a comedy tour.
You're gonna
And
be
so,
dropping jokes. Yeah.
yeah, so it's going to have a very different feel to it. And so,
Yeah.
really understanding the voice is what's then going to tie everything in and get people to really make that decision. Maybe your voice turns them off, but if you're good at it, most likely it's going to, if that's something they're interested in, they're going to really like it. So, moving on to kind of further down the funnel as we're ending the planning portion of the customer cycle and we move into that booking experience. That's the next stage that we're going to be talking about. Katja, what have you ever had an experience where you were looking to book something and there was like something very specific or something that just really led you away from booking with that company?
I recently I went to, Tokyo, I went to Japan, and, it's funny because we wanted to do, like, a tea ceremony, so kind of a touristy thing, definitely not something that locals would do, but I just felt it would be a cool experience, and, um what it came down to is really just, like, the ease of booking. So this is totally foreign country, like, I don't speak Japanese, so I was on OTAs, I was actually on Get Your Guide and so forth. I did try to go to some of their native websites because I would rather have, the money go direct to them, but it was really hard for me to navigate. So, like that combination of just, like, clarity and ease is, like, what really made me kind of book the tour in the end. No.
And I wonder too, is you said that most locals won't be was the website in English? Was it in Japanese? What was the primary language on that website?
It was Japanese, yeah, which was hard being translated. Yeah.
But with that, the opportunity for them there is probably to have a not a second website, but a
Mhm.
whether it's a plugin or whatever that allows it to be easily converted to English without having to be clunky and
Right.
it still being a good user experience because a lot of the people going to those tea ceremonies are going to be either a
They're English
different
learners.
from a different country or
Yeah.
English speaking or something. So you also have to think just making sure you're providing a good user experience for your ideal customer. Now, if their ideal
Mhm.
customer is the Japanese market, absolutely. It doesn't make too big of a difference, but you're missing out on a lot of people who would have booked but found it a bit confusing. And you're tech savvy. So imagine people who are traveling who aren't as tech savvy, so
I always
anyways,
think about that when I go through booking processes or just on websites, like, man, this is so
Yeah.
hard to use. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is literally what I do every day, and if this is hard for me, I can't imagine, like,
yeah,
my dad using this or my mom or
Right.
their neighbor or whatever, like, how are they ever gonna figure this out? Maybe they're more
or
patient because 'cause I'm also way less patient because of the knowledge I have and stuff, but maybe that's the difference.
That's true.
I there's no, like, end in sight. I was on a website yesterday. I don't even remember what it was for. Yesterday feels like 3 years ago at this point. But there was no, like I had to either submit something or do something. I literally can't remember, but I do remember being frustrated, and I couldn't. There was no button to finish. There was no button to submit.
Yeah.
There was nothing, and I was like, "Am I going crazy? What is happening here?" Uh, I don't feel dumb, but maybe I don't know. But come to find out, it wasn't there. So yeah, make it really easy for people. As Greg says, if your grandma should be able to do it too. Wait, well, how do you say it, Greg?
Yeah, alright, I don't know exactly how I say it, but I literally used to take things to my mom, who's not tech savvy, she'll admit it, and
Oh, that
say
was your
like, "Hey."
grandma.
Well, yeah, if your grandma, but she never had really used a computer much, so I used my mom. But it's like I would create prototypes, working prototypes, clickable, and I'd go to my mom and my dad and my wife essentially, usually, and ask them to use it, and if any of them had problems with it, then I knew they're probably gonna have problems with it, versus going to, my coworkers who do the same thing and being like, "Use this." They're gonna have very different view because they're gonna go into the technical side or something
Yeah,
more not as user friendly. So
Mhm.
whatever it is you're working on, I'll emphasize this, like, test with people. Don't just, like,
Mhm.
create something with AI that's a local guide of your area and then publish it. Like, have friends read it,
Mhm.
send it to someone that's gonna come on a tour and be like, "Hey, I just created this, like, you wanna take a look? Is this helpful?" People are
get
more
feedback.
willing to help and give feedback because they want their experience to be better, but they also want, if they like your company, they want you to be successful. So don't be afraid to ask people for help on that type of stuff as well.
You you know what too? Ask other tour operators. There's so many Facebook communities, whether it's through the Tourpreneur, we have our own Facebook group. Josh Oakes from the Sunshine Tribe has a group, and there's so many others out there. But there are a bunch of tour operators in those groups asking, "Hey, can you check out my website? Hey, what improvements do I need to make?" Other tour operators are willing to help other tour operators, and we're willing to help. And so ask for help and ask for people to test. Most people are going to say yes. You're going to get people to raise their hand and be willing to give you some good feedback. Um, Katja, if somebody listening, feels like their marketing is all over the place, let's pretend that they're a client of yours and you're meeting with them for the first time. Their marketing is all over the place. What's the first thing you think they should fix in this planning phase?
That's a really good one. Honestly, I would start with clarity. Before you start thinking about your website or your emails or anything, you have to be really clear on who your experience is for and what makes it special. Not in like a generic way, but a really specific, like honest way. Like, I think that's so important. A lot of like the all over the place marketing usually comes from, people just trying to appeal to too many people at once, so the messaging gets really broad. The website tries to say everything. And then kind of in the end, it just really doesn't land with anyone. So, if you can get like really clear on like who your ideal customer is, what they really care about, like what makes your experience the right fit for them, everything just kind of gets easier. Then your website, your content, your ads kind of all follow that guiding principle, So I think that first step or fix or whatever really isn't like it's always internal. It's not a tactical thing. It's like stepping back and making sure like you actually know like what you're trying to say and like who you're trying to say it to. Cuz once that's clear like, the rest of it just comes into focus and becomes more effective.
That's
This is
awesome
where a
advice.
quiz could be super helpful. I just had this thought, like, we have a client that we have multiple clients we've done quizzes for, but one's a whitewater rafting company, and it
Right.
asks, like, as you're going through it, what type of experience are you looking for, right? Are you looking for something more calm and relaxing, or are you like me and want just as many rapids as possible and potentially get thrown out of the raft? And, like, as it's asking these different questions, hopefully, they're using that information to help drive the emails and messaging that's going out to these specific people, right? Because if you're just sending out something that's like, "Hey, you filled out this quiz. We have your email. Here's some information about us." Cool. But if I got an email and I said, "I want action," and I got an email that was like a different tone even than something that a scenic float might have.
Mhm.
Like, I want them to be talking about, like, "This is gonna be the most awesome experience. The chances of you getting thrown out of the raft is, like, a 7 out of 10. You're gonna be just
Yeah.
pummeled by white water, and it's gonna be the best day of your life," right? Like, that might scare away someone that doesn't want that, but I literally just filled out something saying I want that.
Saying you
So, like,
wanted
if you talk to me that way, I'm gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, this sounds awesome." Versus
that.
so
Perfect.
many sites I land on, it's just all generic in the sense of, "We have this tour and this tour and this tour, and you can
Yeah.
do this, 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 and this," and it has a class 5 rapid or it has class 3 rapid or class 1 rapid, but it's, like, all the same, and it might not be boring, but it's like, there is that ability to talk differently about each tour, I think, with a little
Yeah.
bit different voice depending on what you're offering, and if you do have option to kind of have things that are just really adrenaline focused versus not, then don't be
Yeah.
afraid to talk differently about them, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you have different personas in your ICP, in your ideal customer profile. And Katja, just touching
Mhm.
on what you said, your biggest advice is to create clarity. I would tell tour operators if you don't know where to start, create your ideal customer profile. We've developed a system at Resmark where we do it for all of our clients. But it's kind of a mix of looking at your Google Analytics, if you have that, looking at every single review you've ever gotten, just detailing all this information, putting it in AI and allowing it to produce something obviously based off of your own research and what the data is sharing with us, and just taking that information and utilizing it to your advantage. And then you could build your website copy around that and whatnot. So to create that clarity around your messaging and then eventually start segmenting your lists and everything like that, make sure you have that ICP in place, that ideal customer profile established, and you know what kind of language is going to resonate with your perfect customers, we'll say, because there's different personas within your ICP. So wonderful. Okay, that is another episode of the Tour Operator Growth Podcast. Katja, we enjoyed having you on here so much. You are an incredible client success manager, and now you're an incredible podcast guest. So we hope that we didn't scare you away too much and
No.
you come back on. But you provide. I just want to tell everybody listening, Katja provides so much value to her clients. She meets with all of our website SEO clients monthly, and she strategizes with them and helps them think of best practices and marketing strategies to really help them level up. She cares so much about her clients. So if you ever come on board, you'll definitely at least meet Katja, whether she's your success manager or not, and you will be in good hands. So all right. That's another episode. Please like, subscribe, and really just give us feedback. If you could just shoot me an email or something saying that you are enjoying our podcast episodes, please do, because it then tells my boss that we can continue doing these. And by my boss, I mean Greg. So bye, everyone.